if you're ready to rock and roll, let's learn a lot more about workflow. Take it away.
Great, thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. So, hello everyone, my name is Sandy Wickman. I currently serve as a Senior GP Implementation Consultant for InterDyn BMI, and we are a national SMB reseller and a branch of a global enterprise reseller called Columbus Global. So my experience with GP began about 16 and a half years ago as a GP consultant in California. I currently reside in Austin, Texas, and during that 16 years of experience, I've had the opportunity to install, implement, consult, support, and customize GP as an independent reseller prior to joining with InterDyn BMI. I also had the opportunity to take contract roles with GP customers during terms of rapid customer growth to assist with specific initiatives, including process improvements and module implementations. So I have a pretty diverse, deep background in the GP products, and I'm happy today to be able to show you some of the more advanced needs and how Microsoft is addressing the advanced needs of these workflows that we've seen since GP 2013. Enough is enough, except when it really isn't. So the conditions that we are given out of the box with these workflows very often don't provide all of the possibilities that we can think of to be able to accomplish the workflows that we need for approvals for things like our requisitions, our purchase orders, and even things like our general ledger batches. So some of the 2016 features give us the ability to be able to send out a Word template that includes all of the details of a GL batch to have that be approved through an email for people who don't ever have to log into GP. But sometimes those are based on conditions that just aren't available in the current list that's sent out with the out-of-the-box workflows. So our agenda for today is we're going to take a look at the Workflow 2.0 timeline and the available types in version order. We're going to look at GP 2016 new features on workflows. We're going to talk for a minute about the prerequisites, the conditions that are available, and then adding to functionality to extend those condition options. So the most significant takeaway I offer you today is how to expand those conditions available to your workflows. The demo really is relatively short, so the slide deck was designed to give you a tool from which to be able to repeat the demo steps on your own. So we're going to begin with a quick look at the reasons that creating the need for this functionality in the first place. So again, GP 2013 R2 is the place where these workflows actually began in this format. Workflows were available using a SharePoint basis in the past, but this release, Workflow 2.0s, are no longer chained to SharePoint. So we don't have that requirement in there anymore. In GP 2013, we had 4 different workflow types: requisitions, POs, payroll time cards, and project time and expense. And then each release since that GP 2013 R2 has provided new types and/or new functionality to the workflow functions. So we currently have 14 workflow types available to us in GP 2016. Additionally, in 2016, there's also the ability to be able to have workflows that approve the creation of SQL views from the Smart List Designer. So your IT folks even get to get involved in the workflows if we choose to. So there are some enhancements that are just an absolute must in this GP 2016 functionality as it gets rolled out. So Microsoft is paying attention to the votes and the feedback to further enhance the workflows to meet your needs. So in prior versions, pre-2016, there was no ability for someone who was delegated or escalated to be able to get an email notification of those reassignments or escalations. So that's been resolved in 2016. The Workflow Condition Management enhancement now allows you to be able to set 2 different options when a step condition isn't met. They can either continue to the next step, or they can reject it, which sends it back to the person who had originally submitted the workflow so that they can take next steps or take other alternate actions. And then, as I mentioned, those Microsoft Word templates for the batch approvals is also a part of our 2016 features. Really great new stuff. And I expect to continue to get new things out with this workflows as we see additional versions in our future. However, I wouldn't necessarily suggest waiting to jump into the workflows. The 2016 version has a full house of functionality, so I would hope that you would consider jumping in at this point to be able to take advantage of this. There are some prerequisites that may be necessary in order to use all of the functionality that's available in Workflow 2.0. So depending on whether you want to have emails be a part of your workflow and the approval through those emails be a part of them, you may need to have some additional things in place. For instance, the SQL Server agent may need to be started and running. Additionally, you may need to install web services for Microsoft Dynamics GP 2016. So this slide has 2015, but it's essentially the same installation for either 2015 or 2016. Each workflow ships with some default conditions that might meet your basic needs for workflows. For instance, the purchase requisitions have conditions that include line details and document details for the requisitions. Even with the extended field list, we're not able to reach the distributions, so the GL distributions for a requisition. So today that's the specific learning objective that we have, is how we're going to reach GL distributions for the workflow for our requisitions. We're able to get additional fields into the list for setting conditions by joining in additional tables into the condition editor for the workflow type. And we can do this by using one of the tools that was added to workflow that was originally intended to help with the development of new workflow types. But we can also use it to modify existing workflow types, including extending the field list that's available for setting our conditions. So as you might imagine, where this was a development or dev tool that was rolled out, one of the very most important things that I'll tell you today is before you begin doing any of these changes, make sure you do a backup. The most common scenario we've seen in this request is to be able to set conditions based on a segment of the account used on the line for a purchase requisition. The account is on the document, but the condition doesn't work as expected because the condition is actually being compared against the account index. So again, those of you who've been around GP for a while recognize that accounts are actually held in the GP SQL tables as indexes, not necessarily as the full string account. So the full string account exists in the requisition line table. So to work around this, we can join the account index master table into the condition list and then set those conditions based on a property of the account. Okay. There is no undo on this, so again, highly recommended before you begin, do a backup. So the actual steps that we're going to walk through in terms of our demo then is that we would typically shut down GP. In the dex.ini file, we're going to set the value query designer all functionality equals true and set that as a switch and then restart GP. So here's a little mini test for you, just a brain twister. Where is the dex.ini file located? Do you know without needing to look? Then we're going to open the workflow maintenance and open the workflow condition editor for one of the steps of your workflow. Within the steps, we're going to be seeing a workflow condition editor that looks very different than the workflow condition editor that would without this switch turned on in our DexINI file. Then in the Database Tables section, we're going to set our Microsoft Dynamics GP Financial Account Index Master. In Selected Fields section, we're going to select the account number string. And then on the Linked Tables tab, we're going to do a left join between the Purchase Requisition Line table and the Account Index Master table and add it to the table links. So note that we've used a left join in this case because the account is not required on a requisition. So using an inner join would make it so that no data was returned for records where an account isn't entered. So we're going to use a left join. Then on the Conditions tab, we're going to set the condition you want on the Account Index Master for the account number string field. So in our sample, in our demo today, we're going to want to set a condition that the step runs only when the first segment of the account is equal to 200. So if by chance your string of GL account numbers has something like a division, a location, and then a natural account, we'd be saying in this example that division 200 was the method that we wanted to use, or the condition we wanted to use, to be able to determine who does the approval for this group of requisitions. So imagine the possibilities where you can have the division person who's responsible for the budget for that division actually doing the approvals for requisitions for their specific division. There is some flexibility and some ability to be able to use wildcards when setting the SQL string that will retrieve the data during the workflow. So there are wildcard characters, and when using those wildcard characters, we need to be sure to consider the segment separator as a character. So if you have a string in your account numbers that is 200-201-1101 for the natural account, each one of those dashes needs to be considered a segment and have a character in it for wildcards. Then any part of your GL account is possible to set as a condition of the workflow. So you might be able to then use segment 2 or segment 3, but you'd need to be sure those wildcards are in place for each of those divisions. If you look at this window, there's a Run Query button at the end of it. If you look at the Run Query tab and then click Execute, you can even see the SQL query that's generated for the condition. So we get the opportunity right within the setup to be able to see the results that are going to be a part of the way that we're setting it up, so that we can find if it's actually working the way that we would hope for it to. Then the last part of our steps would be to shut down GP and set the Query Designer All Functionality equals false, or take the switch out of our DexINI to limit others from messing up the joins in your table conditions. And then the results, once you have the new tables joined in and set your conditions on additional fields, you can then run your workflow to make sure you're getting the results you would expect. The results returned by the query are the records for which the condition is met. The workflow step will run for records that meet this condition. Any tables that are part of any dictionaries loaded with GP can be included in workflow conditions using these steps that I've outlined. So although there's no specific test with things like extender tables, these would be included in your GP dictionaries and therefore should be included as well in terms of the ability to be able to do those kinds of things. Okay, so let's jump over to GP and actually see how this works. So for the sake of time, I already have gone ahead and set my DexINI with my switch in it. So here's the response to the test that I asked. Under Program Files, typically that's where GP is installed in the Microsoft Dynamics folder, under GP 2016, and then in the Data folder is typically where I would find my DexINI file. So I actually have created two separate DexINIs so that when I need my switch to be turned on, I can use this one, and when I need my switch to be turned off, I can go to one that's defined as having my designer not included in it. So by right-clicking on it and edit, I can open my DexINI and scroll to the bottom of the file, and I can see this Query Designer All Functionality equals true. So this was in place at the time when I launched my GP application. Okay. On my administration area page, in the setup section, under company, I have my workflow and then workflow maintenance. So workflow maintenance is my navigation. If I click on the plus next to my requisition approval, I have a requisition that's already set up, a workflow type for GL account division 200, where we're going to go look at how we've structured this to be able to allow the condition to be where the string begins with 200. So the actual setup of each of the steps and the parts of the workflow was all in a previous webinar that we've done, so you might want to look for the recordings of those as a precursor if you haven't already got this far on your workflow maintenance. And I'm going to go ahead and make that selection as my workflow condition, and then choose the expansion button here, the blue expansion button. So you'll recognize this window from the slide deck. Within this, I will choose the plus next to the Dynamics GP dictionary. However, before I do that, notice that I have a number of different dictionaries here that may include any of the other products that I have installed with my GP application. So I'm going to click on the plus next to the Microsoft Dynamics GP, and we're looking for the account index master, so I'm going to click on the plus next to financial. It takes a minute here. And I'm choosing my account index master. So when I click on the plus next to it, I see that by choosing the top level, I've actually chosen all three of the fields that are available in that table. I could potentially just choose the one that I wanted to link to, which is the account number string. So I could open it up and just choose this one, or I can choose this and it chooses all of the fields in the table. Then down here in the selected fields, I can scroll down to the bottom where I can see the additional fields that are available for me to take as a part of my selected fields. So I place a check mark there next to the account index. Then I can look at my link tables. Now I've already created this down here at the bottom, and I'm going to walk you through the steps of how that got created. So in the selected table, I'm going to choose the purchase requisition line, so my choices are going to be to look at the purchase requisition line GL account, and I'm going to do that left join, and I want to select to join that to the account index master. Then I'm going to define the fields by which I'm going to create that join. So on the first table, which is my requisition line table, I'm going to choose the field for my inventory index. Inventory index, and I want that inventory index to match my account index in my account index table. And then I would click this add button, which places it down here in this section of the window, the table links window, and should look exactly like this one does here. I have the opportunity to be able to remove and rethink these by using the X to remove them if I needed to. I can use this X to remove the field comparisons as I need to. Then I can look at the conditions button, where I've included an indication that I want to have a selected field that is for my account index, where it contains the value of actually in my case I put begins with a value of 200. So where the account index master account number string begins with 200. Now you can also do field comparisons, right? And you can display that extended field list. Then I can come over here to that Run Query button and actually run the query where if I had anything in my GP data that actually met that query, it will, in this Execute button, then show the results of that. So keep in mind, if you're creating a new condition and you've just set it up for the very first time, you shouldn't have anything that actually meets that value necessarily. You may need to go put some data in to have it give you any results. So I actually have 2 requisitions that I went and created so that I'd have the ability to be able to show the results in this Execute query. Now I can set up maximum columns and even maximum records so that I can see the results of this. But notice that my results are showing that I have 2 different requisitions already in place that meet that condition. Then I can save my steps, save my workflow, and should then be able to go out and see that condition show up as an available way to be able to set my requisitions up and to be able to do those requisitions. So we'll quickly look here in my purchase requisitions at the requisitions that were already created, where I have account number 200 as my first 3 characters, so begins with 200, meet the qualifiers, and therefore show in my list when I ran my condition editor. Okay, so as I get back to my slide deck and final thoughts then, Kim, do we have any questions that have come in during our presentation today?
I have to unmute 2 things. So everybody on the right-hand side, there's a question area. Let's go ahead and type in your questions that you've got, because there aren't any, so you can be first. So
while we're waiting, then I wanted to mention these couple of final thoughts about this functionality. You should plan to work only with tables in the same company database. So it's not cross-database or cross-company functional at this point, but that is one of the things that Microsoft has received a number of requests for, to have it go across company databases. So that's likely to be in an upcoming version. And when linking a system table, you'll get an ODBC error if you try to do that at this point. And then the added fields only work for conditions. It's not for data to display as selected in the body of a message.
Excellent. Sandy, that's excellent information. And again, thank you for referring back to some past webinar recordings as well. We have over 100, everyone, of different webinars that you can go back, listen to when it's convenient. And so when we send out today's message, you will be able to see the hot link that's going to go to today's recording. But from there, you can also see the others. So make sure that you take a look at these valuable tools that you have as one of our clients. Sandy, great job as always. There are no questions in the queue. Any last words before we let folks go? Oh, one question. I'm sorry about that. Just to verify, this functionality is used for complex workflows where out-of-the-box functionalities does not support complex routing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly what this is for. Yep. So if the conditions aren't available to be able to allow you to send approvals for specific workflows to the people that you need them to, this can create complex scenarios and send even to groups of Active Directory users out of the box.
Thanks, Gus, for that question. All right. Well, thank you. And Sandy, thank you as always.